You cannot remember, you cannot learn. You cannot learn, you cannot change. Memory is at the core of the human experience and defines who we are and what we do. I'm going to explain how things go wrong in memory, both from a psychological and biological perspective, as well as how to stop that. Then I'm going to explain how to actually improve your memory. To start, we commonly think memory is just remembering something, but that's not the entire picture. In psychology, there are 3 stages to memory: encoding, storage, and retrieval. Encoding is the learning. It's taking some new sensation, fact, image, and sending it to the part of our brain for storage. Most vivid example is when we sit in a classroom lecture. The teacher could be giving a lecture on sub-Saharan geography. Those words, facts, and ideas somehow are moving into our mind for storage. But most of our encoding is actually not active. Most encoding is passively watching and living through the world around us. When we go for a walk, we don't think about the movement of the tree leaves or the movement of the clouds. These aren't math problems we are trying to solve to understand the solution. We absorb the world around us and somehow create understanding of it in our mind without actively trying. This is encoding. It's taking the sights, smells, noises, touch of the outside world and creating something in our mind that we can remember. Now, the next step is storage. These thoughts have to exist somewhere. School usually teaches that these thoughts exist in the hippocampus, a structure in the center of the brain. It's a little bit more complex than that, but for now, that's enough for us to know. There's an area of the brain where we store memory. Lastly, memory is about retrieval. You know when you have something on the tip of your tongue and you just know you know the answer, but can't find the right word for it? That's retrieval. You've encoded the information, stored the information, but now you need to pull it out. That's the final piece of memory. It's retrieval. So when talking about a problem with memory, we don't actually talk about memory as a single thing. Memory has 3 stages, and each stage can go wrong separately. I'll give you an example. In 1999, there were 2 researchers, Simons and Chibris. They gave students a video to watch of people playing basketball, and they told them to count the number of passes of the ball. Now, during this video, there was a person in a gorilla suit who walked through the center of the scene. After the video ended, the students were asked if they saw the gorilla. The majority said they didn't. This is just one way memory fails. It's called selective attention. We don't actually see the information in front of us. You see, this is something that happens in people who are constantly distracted, multitasking, or just cannot maintain their focus. They don't see what's directly in front of them, so they can't actually remember what happened. That's an issue with encoding. Now, here's a problem with storage. We all know that if we learn something, and unless we repeat or revisit what we learned, we forget about it over time. You might know all the flags of the countries in Southeast Asia right after you took that geography test. But unless you repeat it, you're going to forget in a few weeks. This type of problem is common knowledge. We all understand it. But there's an equally important problem to know with storage, and that's called interference. Memories you have previously learned will interfere with you learning new memories. Or new memories will make you forget old memories. Imagine you had just learned a list of 10 new facts. Then you opened your phone immediately afterwards and started scrolling. First, you see a video about a cat, then a post from a friend about their relationship, then a funny video, and so on and so on. You'd forget the facts you learned, or at least a good portion of them, because the video has just interfered with what you learned. So for example, even if I asked you what problem I'm describing now, a good portion of you might have already forgotten that I said, what was the word? Correct, interference. What I said right after the word, listing the problem, is what interfered with you remembering the problem. Memory is like a sandcastle. It needs to solidify. It's most fragile right after it's been made. And you turning on the phone is the wave washing it all away. For retrieval, I already mentioned the tip of the tongue phenomenon. It's where you feel like you know the word, but can't retrieve it immediately. But the other problem with retrieval is misinformation. In 1978, there was a researcher named Elizabeth Loftus. She showed a group of participants a car accident. They asked these participants about a yield sign, even though the video only had a stop sign. Afterwards, when talking about the event, the people in the group remembered seeing a yield sign. Misinformation from other people or other sources changes the information that we retrieve. It changes our memory. These are the examples I gave you were to paint a picture of how fragile and impressionable our memory can be. Simply put, our habits, environment, and attention directly affect how we remember, what we remember, and if we will remember. So from a psychological angle, you need to do these things to improve your memory. 1, eliminate distractions. Your mind needs to take in information and put it into storage. It needs to file it away. If you are listening to a lecture while scrolling on your phone, or drawing in a notebook, or eating food, or thinking about what you're going to wear tomorrow, you will not learn anything. Your mind is all over the place. It is taking in too much information and not focusing on a single one. It is distracted. It cannot encode. You'll hear the words of the lecture and you'll physically be there and you'll feel like you're going through the lecture, but not a single one of them will actually enter your head. It's like the gorilla passing right before your eyes. You don't even realize it's there. So, eliminate distractions. Your workspace should be simply your work. No phone, no clutter, simply your work, one task at a time. Focus. Number 2, let your memory simmer. Once you've learned something, simply sit there and ruminate on it. Think about it some more, digest it. Don't fill your mind with anything else. Memories need time to sink in. Do not immediately check your emails or your texts or watch that video. This interferes with your mind storing information. You ever heard the phrase, sleep on it? Sleeping is when most memory consolidates. Memory needs time to form. There's a reason people say sleep on it. Number 3, make connections. A memory can be like an island. It's really hard to get there if you don't have a bridge. When you learn something, try to use analogies or memory clues. The more ways you could connect facts together with feelings, touch, smell, and other facts in your head already, the easier it becomes to remember and retrieve what you are trying to learn. Your mind favors connections. It favors building maps of information that you already have. That's how you make retrieval simpler. Now, these are the 3 broad strokes from a psychological perspective. There are many different strategies, but they all fall into one of these buckets. Eliminate distractions to encode. Let memory simmer to store. Give it time. and make different connections to retrieve. Now, for the biological perspective. From biology, we don't know exactly what memory looks like, but we know what it doesn't look like. If your neurons are shrinking, or they do not form connections with other neurons, or they can't transmit neurotransmitters. Now, neurotransmitters are the chemicals neurons use to communicate with each other. Then your memory will worsen. And so here's a list of things that have actually been shown to cause the above biological changes, the above damage. And so this is also the exact list of things to stop doing if you want to improve your memory. Number 1, alcohol intake. Alcohol inhibits the communication between neurons. You can't remember things in the short term, and long-term alcohol abuse is associated with your brain cells actually dying and becoming smaller. Long-term alcohol abuse leads to irreversible damage and memory loss. You need to stop or severely limit your alcohol intake. Number 2, stress and anxiety. Stress and anxiety release a hormone called cortisol. Long-term cortisol reduces your ability to control your impulses, to think critically, and to learn to memorize. It's very hard to sit there and study when you're wondering if your family member will get through their sickness, whether you can pay rent, or what's going to happen tomorrow. The cortisol release while you are stressed and anxious directly interferes with the entirety of your cognitive processes. If you are familiar with the fight or flight response of the body, your body essentially has 2 modes. One is in which your adrenaline is spiking and you need to react to real or perceived threats. And the other is in which your body is relaxed, it's growing, it doesn't have any stressors. But when you are stressed, your adrenaline and cortisol, they spike. Your body redirects resources to handle this threat and shuts down the use of other portions of your body. Learning and memorizing happen when you're relaxed. So when your body's cortisol spikes, your body is in attack mode, it's in fight mode, and it attempts to handle the threat, whether that threat exists or it's just part of your perception. As a result, your body's not in a state which it can actually learn or think. This is all caused by stress and anxiety. Number 3 is depression. Sometimes memory loss is actually a sign of depression. During depression, your perception of the world is warped. Your actual neural activity is lowered, as in your neurons are firing less. And you're only encoding and focusing on the negative dwelling thoughts that are inside your head. It's that little voice in your head that's causing or a mark of your depression. You notice things around you, but you don't register them. The world loses a bit of its flavor, becomes a bit more gray. You can't remember when you're depressed. Your mind is elsewhere. Number 4, lack of sleep. In university, I had this college professor tell an anecdote of a sleep deprivation study. They took this student who was a 4.0 student, excelled in academia, and was the top of his class in all of his engineering courses. For about 72 hours, they deprived him of sleep. Now, I don't remember exactly if he didn't sleep all 72 hours or if they just held him to an hour to a night. But by the 4th day, after the 72-hour period, he did not show up to class. And mind you, this was someone who was at class every single day. No one could find him. After they did a campus-wide search, they eventually found him off campus in a strip club, reeking of alcohol. He failed his classes that semester. When you don't get enough sleep, every aspect of your mind diminishes. You are less capable of remembering. You are less capable of thinking critically, solving problems, and you are less able to control your emotions decision making. You start to make decisions that have nothing to do with your intellect or ability to remember. You make decisions simply because you are sleep deprived. These are not good decisions. I'm going to go through the next ones a bit faster. They're a bit more straightforward and they have clearer remedies. Number 5, underactive thyroid. The thyroid, which is a organ that produces hormones to regulate your metabolism, if it is underactive, that is correlated with memory loss and brain fog. The simplest way to fix this, get your thyroid levels checked, and a physician will prescribe you medications. Number 6, nutrient deficiency. Your brain, like your body, needs nutrients. Vitamin B1, vitamin B12, vitamin D, omega-3 fatty acids, folate, iron, zinc, magnesium. These are all nutrients your mind needs to think clearly. A lot of people are nutrient deprived. Fish, red meats, leafy greens are all ways you can get these vitamins. Number 7, high blood pressure. High blood pressure is a risk factor for dementia. High blood pressure causes neural cell death. Lower and maintain your blood pressure. Number 8, digital screen time. Now, this is a modern one, but the evidence has already shown the correlation. Passive screen time, which is anything such as scrolling social media, watching videos, or simply absorbing content on the screen while not actively engaged, has been shown as a risk factor for dementia. A 2022 study in the UK of 146,000 participants found that those that watched more than 4 hours of television daily were 24% more likely to develop dementia. Limit your screen time. Number 9, addiction. Any form of addiction, whether it is porn, nicotine, alcohol, hard drugs, or anything else that your body can become addicted to, affects your ability to reason, encode new information, and memorize it. Addiction literally hijacks your attention mechanisms and fills your thoughts with the constant desire to have another hit of that addictive substance. You can't remember and learn anything when you are fighting a craving in your mind that's on 24/7. So, given all this information, what should you do? How should you view memory and how can you make it better? Well, the very first and simple answer is to stop doing all the things that ruin your memory. We do so much of them in our daily lives, we don't even realize it. And we start to think that that level of mental clarity that we have is our normal. It's actually not. You need to get back to a baseline mental state where it's not affected by all those negative habits I've listed that's ruining your memory. This is the hard part because you actively have to be aware of what those habits are, how you're spending your time, and what is going on in your life that can be affecting your memory. Once you start getting your mind back to baseline, your memory will naturally start improving. Like running through mud, the more mud you remove, the faster you start to run. The more brain fog you clear, the more you'll start to see and remember. Now for the active part. Remember how we talked about those stages of memory? Encoding, storage, retrieval? All these stages have a biological basis in your mind, meaning your neurons need to be able to sense and understand the world around it, store the information, and then find neurons to retrieve information from. This is biology. And there are steps that you can make and do to make this process better. Number 1, break ideas into parts. So this is along the stage of encoding. If I gave you a complex math formula, you won't be able to take it apart into something digestible you can learn. And if you can't understand it, you can't encode it. So you can't memorize, you can't retrieve it later. You know that time when your eyes sometimes just gloss over when there's a hard topic being presented, or someone is saying something deeply technical and your mind goes blank? This is because you don't actually have the tools to take that topic or take what they're saying, break it down into small digestible parts that you can actually encode. And the example doesn't have to be that extreme. You can take any idea, break them into smaller pieces, and try to learn from those smaller pieces first, and code from bottom up. Once you understand those smaller pieces, you can build upon them. That is a strategy to improve memory so that long term you can learn more, memorize more, and see it from simpler parts, almost from first principles. Number 2, aerobic exercise and resistance training. Swimming, running, tennis, golf, and other sustained exercises that cause you to focus and to breathe heavily have all been shown to help improve your memory. Any form of long-lasting, moderate aerobic exercises release something called neurotrophic factors. And these are chemical compounds in your brain that help in the growth of neural tissue and strengthen the existing connection between tissue. Number 3, review and reframe. You view the knowledge you know and try to reframe it. Create connections between one fact and another. First, this strengthens the information in your mind so you don't lose what you learned. Second, this connects information in your mind to other pieces of information you already know. The more neurons are interconnected, the stronger the retrieval abilities will be. Number 4, social connections. Social interactions and strong social networks have protective effects in your mind from cognitive decline and dementia. Those who have a strong and close group of friends, as well as meaningful social connections, have a lower risk of cognitive impairment and dementia later in life. Stay social, but it's not quantity, it's quality. Have deeper social connections. And number 5, practice memorizing. Actually practice memorizing. Memory is like a muscle. You can train it. And if you don't train it, you lose it. So actively try to memorize new information. If you're good with facts but not faces, practice memorizing faces. If you're good with people but not names, try to actively memorize names. Lists, speeches, numbers, names, images. These are all different categories you can try to memorize. Create these challenges for yourself. To close, your memory is something you can directly control. You can make it better and protect against memory loss at any age. You remove all the negatives in your life that cause memory issues. Replace them with the healthy habits for your mind. You'll not only notice the difference, but you'll also remember it.